Thanks for listening in to another episode of Conversations with Alison J, The Journey to Here. Please remember to subscribe, hit the like button and share. Hello and welcome to another episode of Conversations with Alison J, The Journey to Here. I'm your host, Alison J. Today I'm delighted to welcome our guest, Courtney Brown. Courtney is the founder and CEO of Father2Father. In analysing his own life and struggles as a man, and listening to stories from other men, Courtney came to the realization that other men share the same struggle. That is what prompted Courtney to be the founder of Father2Father. And he uses this platform to assist men with the struggles they face and explore why negative behaviors in men, if gone unchecked, can persist, which leads them to self-sabotage. Father2Father is an award-winning community interest company that provides support, training, and development to fathers, men, and adolescent boys. It aims to empower fathers and young men to make informed decisions about their lifestyle and relationships. Their mission is to increase the proportion of children growing up with involved, responsible fathers and male role models. Father2Father achieves this by supporting and providing adolescent boys, fathers, and their families with mentorship, information, advice, and guidance that will enhance their personal, social, and economic well-being. They engage fathers and listen to their needs, then provide support, training, and awareness. So Courtney, I have heard your story and it has touched me, the growth in you as a man, as a Black man. So please tell the listeners about your journey in founding Father2Father. Even though I have read a lot of it in the introduction, but we want to hear it from you.
Okay. First of all, thank you, Alison, for giving me this platform to share my journey. It's an honor to be on this platform with you.
Well, welcome.
Father2Father. So, Courtney Brown, father of 4 boys. Yeah, the eldest is 30. 25, 16, and 11, just turned 11. Married.
Sorry, 30, 30.
30,
yeah. Cool, but you look 30 yourself.
Thank you very much.
Even though I know we're the same age, but hearing that number, it's just like, hold on.
Thank you. When people ask me that, I say it's the white rum, and it's not drinking it, it's bathing in it. The white rum, but 3 beautiful grandchildren. My beautiful wife, who is my backbone. You know, I always have to honor her because she's my anchor. She's my anchor. But we'll come to that bit later on. My day job is head of student engagement for a secondary school in Hackney, where I'm a head of student engagement. So that means I lead on the mentoring program in the school and leadership. I'm also the parent engagement worker that's my remit there as well, and a community engagement worker. So that's where I bring in organizations from the community into the schools that can support parents and children as well. The journey of Father2Father. Wow.
Yeah.
So that started 7 years, pretty much, 7 years ago. It was our anniversary, August just gone, 7 years. And it starts from a place of living in a community where my dad was and is still seen and respected. But back then, he was the bad man of Tottenham. I grew up in that. So from the age of 6 and below, I cannot remember anything, from an age of 6 and below. But from 6 upwards, and I'm sure there was good things, but all I can remember is the bad things.
Right.
All I see visions is of the bad things. So domestic abuse, drugs and alcohol, women, it was just those things. But I still loved my dad and I wanted his validation.
Of course.
At the age of, from the ages of 13 up to, I say, around 21, because of the love for my dad and I wanted his validation, I wanted his love, see his love, I bought into his identity. So I tried to become this person that I was hearing stories about. If that makes sense. So, you know, I thought, well, you know what? I thought that was my purpose in life, to be like my dad and have that power and respect. So, you know, try to act out his lifestyle, but it didn't fit me. And the funny thing is, even though I was searching for his love and that, and by being this, I always was saying to myself deep down, I didn't want to be like my dad because of the other things that I witnessed. At the age of 21, I had my first son, and I thought to myself, nah, I don't want my son to go through what I've gone through, so I need to change this narrative. You know, so I, you know, stopped doing what I was doing on the roads, and you know, got myself into a little job, and you know, I thought I was doing the right thing. Broke up with my son's mum when he was 1, which was a traumatic time for me as well. And then I bought into another identity, this big time promoter. So I realized I couldn't be a bad man, but I could be this promoter that, you know, wore the sharp suits, had the champagne.
That's the guy I met all those years ago.
That's exactly the guy you met all those years ago, Alison. Yeah, you know, and was around the mention man. Them, it was almost like I found my purpose and the beauty. And what was going on in my mind then is that actually it was almost like a tick box, because, you know, people that knew me and who my dad was would say it's just like Mpupa.
Wow.
So it was like a
tree, right?
Yes, I felt validated. Now, the thing with that though, is that while I was living this lifestyle, yeah, I had already had one boy for one lady, and then I had another child for another lady, but yeah, I still didn't want to be like my dad.
Now, let me ask you a question though.
Yeah.
So, in all of this trying to basically mirror who your father was, did you feel like that even brought you any closer to him?
No, that's the thing. It didn't. I got more and more angry with him. More and more angry with him.
And do you think that anger was a thing where, as much as you were following in his footsteps, you didn't want to be like him, but it still wasn't doing anything?
But he still wouldn't do it. That's what I'm saying. Because my thing was that you had so much of this influence. What have you done for me and my brother? You know, what have you done? And then, you know, and then there's my mum working 3 jobs to make sure we've got everything on the table, you know, providing for us and everything. But what have you done? You know, but why is the community showing you so much respect? But yet deep down, you know, I was going on this direction, you know. So yeah, so like I said, you know, I had another son for another lady, and then it was like, yeah, you don't want to be becoming, but you're becoming more and more like it. Like now you've got 2 children for 2 different women, like your dad, and obviously my dad at that time, you know, I found out that I had other siblings out there away from my mum, you know. So obviously I'm like, oh my God, I am becoming more like my dad.
So how did you find out?
Well, to be honest with you, well, I knew my sister. But then one day, my brother, he's my brother. I don't even call him half brother, but my brother knocked on my mum's door, and literally I opened the door and he said, "I'm your brother," because what was going in the community, what was being said in the community then is, there's this guy that looks just like Courtney, yeah. And then that's how we found our other brother. He actually knocked on my mum's door, and yeah, we just took him in.
That's big of your mum, though. That just shows the kind of woman that your mum is. Because other women would have been like, nope, don't care. You're the outside child. This is the home.
Yeah. My mum, you know, don't get me wrong, she was married with a different guy then, you know, but when he came, because I must have been about, when he came to our house, must have been about 23, 24. So yeah, and he came and knocked on the door. And from that day, he's always been part of our family. He's our brother, you know. So that was that. So what was happened? So yeah, so I had another son. So I'd gone on this. I'm still on this journey of living this lifestyle, you know, My sons are growing up. I've got married now, have a kid with my wife, and started working in a school. Yeah, so this school, you know, in Hackney, predominantly African Caribbean boys and girls in there. And you know, I was known as an assistant head of year there. So I'm in this school in my office, no word of a lie, and like young people were coming into my office, boys and girls, emotionally upset. And when I would ask them what was wrong, common denominator, dad. Their stories were about dad, and it was a number of stories, Alison. It was either, you know, mum stopped them from seeing dad, dad's got a new family, he's not paying them no attention, dad's out partying too much, or dad's working, and when he comes in, there's no connection. But it was dad. It triggered me. It triggered me so much because I understood their pain, because it was the same pain I had. So it just resonated with me straight away. But so during school time, I'm known as a restorative practitioner. So restorative is a process where you repair the harm. You bring two people together and you repair the harm. You know, it is used in the criminal justice system. So when you brought the perpetrator and the victim together, but the schools were using it in terms of, and it was there to help reduce the fixed term and permanent exclusions of young people. So I've trained up on this. So I'm sitting down thinking to myself now, hold on a minute. But Courtney, this thing has triggered you. You've caused the biggest harm yourself.
Ooh.
And that harm was to my two big boys. Because when I was living this Courtney too sweet lifestyle, they never really, I wasn't engaged with them as I should have been engaged with them. If that makes sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, you know, and what I mean by that, you know, I'm out partying to, you know, them times, you know, raves were going on to God knows what time, Sunday afternoon. Yeah. My boys are interested in football, but I'm in the party. So what's the mums doing? Taking my boys to football. And you know, oh, they get a little bit of money. Yeah. But then I'm buying champagne for girls and roses for girls. And what about my children then? They could have been done with that money. So I started looking at all of this thing, like, you know, like, wait a minute, what's going on? What's this about? So I then made a conscious decision to call their mums and apologize for not being the man I should have been to help bring up our boys, you know, and the father. I called them, and, you know, me and both mums had a real good discussion about it, and we came to a mutual agreement about that. And then I said, bring my boys. Now, this time, one was 22 and the other one was 18. So they came separately at separate times. You know, first one angry with me, but he was angry, but he's got this attitude that, don't worry, I'm gonna get on with life anyway. Right. So, but he was angry. He was angry with me. The other son though, he was spitting anger at me. He's 18 and he's got his mum's tattoo on his arm. He was like, when I was apologizing and asking for his forgiveness, yeah, he was just pointing at his arm. This is my dad. You're what, Lurs? You know, yeah. And this was all of this took place in my own house with my wife sitting next to me and his mum sitting next to him. Yeah. So, and you know what? I just had to. I can't say nothing. How can I say anything? That's his pain and that's his truth. And you know what? It's not just his pain and the truth. It is the truth. You know, I wasn't there. You know,
that is actually the reality of
the reality. Yeah, the reality of it. So, you know, so like for the next, I'd say 10 to 12 months, you know, I was just, you know, just after them, just chasing them, just ringing them up. And like, I really want to make a go of this. And, you know, there'll be days when they rejected me, but I said, I weren't giving up. I'm still going for them. And, you know, they reject me. And then no word of a lie, Alison, those two boys came to live with me after 12 months. They came to live with me, which was, I tell you, that day, I just started crying because I never, ever thought in my life that I would have all my 4 boys living underneath one roof with me, and you know, and be given a second chance to be the best father that I could be. And so, yeah, so that's how I got my sons in. And that was the start of Father2Father. Literally, at that during all that time, though, my wife had been baptized I think maybe about 5 years before. So all that time, even though she was baptized, I was never baptized, but I was going to church with her. So I was hearing certain scriptures and things like that. And I literally said to myself, when my sons came to live with me, I said to myself, my gosh, like, is there some reality in this Father Almighty thing? But yet still, you know, stubborn man, I'm still, you know, even though the sons are here, I'm still dipping in and out of the raving. Yeah, Courtney too sweet, and
still got that alter ego.
Exactly.
Still there, it wasn't dead yet.
It wasn't dead yet, you know. And then what happened? One of my sons moved out, but then my wife's auntie moved in because we just lost our au pair, and we was looking for somebody to look after our youngest boys. So my wife's auntie is a pastor, Pastor Trevlin from KICC Church. So she moved in. So there's me now, like 1 minute, you know, Saturday night out raving, then Sunday coming in and pastor sitting on my chair watching TG Jakes or somebody. And I'm going in the kitchen drinking water to just sit. And I'm like, and I'll never forget after 3 months of pastor being there, she looked at me, you know, and she goes, Courtney, I always asked God, why did he put me in this house here? And then she looked at me in my eyes, you know, the point blank in my eyes, and said, it was for you. Wow. And I was like, what? And I was just, yeah, you can imagine that just freaked me out. But you know what, sis? Yeah, I can understand why she said it was for me, because like I said, the journey of my sons coming back, restoring the father and son relationship, me asking for forgiveness, yeah, all of that is what she was preaching in the church that was touching my heart.
Right.
And so that's why I kind of made the decision to give my life to Christ.
I want to go back a step, right?
Yeah.
Because something you said, because so let me ask you, the days when your wife's aunt was living with you, were those the days when they could still smoke in clubs back in the UK? Because not only were you coming in to drink water to sweat it out, you probably come in and stink.
That's right. No, exactly. So I stunk a cigarette. Yeah. No, I get you. Cigarette, alcohol, yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's
the pastor sitting, you're walking in with the pastor.
Yeah, exactly. You know, that is exactly. But she never, that's the beautiful thing. She never ever judged me. She never ever judged me. You know, it's almost like she just knew where my pain was coming from. And, you know, what I've realized now is that all of those things, and this is my journey, yeah, each to their own, but it was my coping strategy. It's the way I learned how to survive. It gave me identity, and I fed into that identity. So it made me feel like I had a purpose, a destiny in that type of field there, if that makes sense.
It does, because if you think about it as well, though, right? People are a product of their environment.
Yeah.
And your environment and the father figure that you had was being your father, like you said, the domestic abuse, the womanizing, and the bad man on road. So that's what you saw. So that's the example that you had to follow. So in some respects, people could say that, okay, I'm actually not surprised Courtney turned out that way because the example that was set for you to follow.
Exactly. You know, and it was really deep. And this is what I think the terminology that I think the professionals use now is called adverse childhood experiences, ACEs. So that's what and people could check it out. So what they say is that, you know, I think there's 8 types, but the top 3 is if you witnessed domestic abuse, alcohol, drug abuse, and alcohol, and if there's mental health, yeah, you're more likely to experience those things, display certain behaviors as you get older. But I am the one that got out of that. Do you get what I'm saying? You know, so yeah, so that's how it well, it's nearly how Father to Father came about, because then what happened, I was going through all of this transition, not knowing I was going through all of this transition, and I remember quite clearly, 1 August, summer, school's out, I'm in the gym, just finished a good workout, and I'm sitting down in the sauna, meditating in the sauna after having a good workout. But it's like I said, what I was hearing actually, it started troubling my heart, and I'm not lying to you. I said, I'm sitting down in the sauna, yeah, and it's literally, I'm having a discussion with myself, like, you know, so during the week, you're Mr. Brown, the positive male role model, yeah, but then on the weekend, you're Courtney Too Sweet, yeah, but then when you're Mr. Brown on the week, you're confiscating children's mobile phones, listening to their music, confiscating their phones, telling them off for the music that they're listening to, and the words they're listening to, yeah. But then on the weekend, you're promoting the same thing. You're a hypocrite. It's like the thing lit me down in the sauna that I cried out, Alison. But the thing is, I didn't know I'd cried out. The only reason I knew that I'd literally, like, a sound came out of my mouth, yeah, was because 2 other guys in the changing room came into the sauna place to ask me if I was all right.
Wow.
Do you get what I'm saying? So that's when I realized that I actually had cried out, and I had to tell them straight, because I didn't know what was going on with me. Yeah. So I had to just say to them, you know what is it? Is that I burnt my hands on the stones, you know, the hot stones. Yeah. Because how could I explain? Yeah. How can I explain that? I didn't know how to explain what was going on with me. So they said, oh, all right then, mate.
We didn't know what it was to even be able to see it anyway.
I didn't. Exactly. Thank you. I didn't even know what it was. So literally I was going hot and cold in the sauna, yeah, because there was some conflict going on with me. And let me tell you, yeah, it's only when I said, that's it, I'm stopped doing all of these raves, is that where I felt peace. And then it's like a little voice came to me to say, it's not about the events, it's the message of the events you do. I didn't train you up for over 20 years for you to just let go of what you've done.
Wow.
Alison, I ran out of that sauna, and you know what? I wish if she was on here, she would tell you. Donna Spence, the comedian.
Yeah.
Yeah, I phoned up Donna. I got home, I phoned up Donna. I said, Donna, your friend's going mad. I think I'm going mad. This is what happened to me. And she's like, calm down, you know, what happened? And I explained to her. Donna goes, Courtney, you know you've been directly touched by the Father Almighty. 3 days later, that's when I came up with the name Father2Father. Yeah, so that's how Father2Father became. That's how it got its name.
Wow. So let me ask you this, right? Because you spoke about you dipping in and out. You spoke your marriage and stuff like that. So
yeah.
What happened there? Because you know, to be honest, it's a case of your wife's in church, she's baptized. Alter ego Courtney Too Sweet is out on the weekend, spending the money that your children could be getting on drinks and other things for other women. So what was going on there in your marriage? Because to be honest, you've spoken directly, God spoke directly to you, but you haven't told us what you did to get from Courtney Too Sweet to CEO of Father2Father, because you can't be Courtney Too Sweet running around and chasing gal and doing all of that and doing this, because like you said, when you were doing it in the schools, you recognized you were being a hypocrite.
Yeah.
So when did Courtney Too Sweet die? How did he die?
Boy, Courtney Too Sweet died, I would say, when my sons came to my house, when my sons came to live with me, because it was all about being that role model now. And what does that role model look like? You know, and so I started, I started keeping events underneath the name of Father2Father. But what I realized, yeah, Alison, is that, what I realized is that, or what was shown to me, and this is what happened. So, my son, the youngest one, he, about 4 or 5 years ago, I walked into his primary school and saw his head teacher, white male head teacher, pinning him to the floor like an animal.
Hold on, wait. Sorry, you got me stuttering here, Courtney. How, it doesn't actually matter because nobody should be doing that to your child.
Yeah.
How old was your son?
6.
So hold on, sorry. So I have to say this again.
Mm.
So you walked into your son's school, 6-year-old son's school, and saw his head teacher pinning him to the floor like he was an animal. So let me ask you this. I need to get real comfy in my chair now. So it's not, what did they ever say that your son had behavioral issues and that it was violent, so they ever needed to restrain him or something?
Now, what was going on for 6 months prior than that is that my son was displaying behaviors that me, my wife, none of us knew was coming, where it's coming from. So it was in the home, it was in church, it was everywhere he was displaying this behavior. We approached the school, because remember, I work in education. So I was like, what's going on? So I approached the school, look, we need help. Like, we don't know. What became very apparent very soon is that the school was trying to blame me for my son's behavior. So the school saw me as an aggressive man. I'll tell you how. So when the school first gave my son a fixed term exclusion, my wife went to the reintegration meeting. The head teacher asked my wife, do I beat her up at home?
Oh, sorry?
Yes. My wife phoned me and said, babe, I don't know what they think who you are. They think you're some type of monster. I'm like, what are you talking about?
But this time you're working in schools, and so the head teacher, they see what you're doing in schools, and they see that other students come to you to literally just offload.
No. Remember, this is my son's school, so it's not my school that I work in.
Okay.
It's my son. So when they fixed term excluded my son in his primary school, you know, and my wife had to go to a meeting. That's what he asked my wife. Yeah, right. So now me and my wife, we very proactive parents. So we had our son, you know, we went to Bupa, we had him physically checked out then, because one of the things the schools talked about was that he was always aggressively shouting. So we had him checked out, his ears checked out. We found out that his ears was blocked. So right down his eardrums, it was blocked. I forgot what they call it.
So that's why he was shouting.
So we presented that to the school. Then you know, they were, he's always tired at school. What time does he go to bed? So we said, well, the funny thing is, when we had him checked out, we found out that his blood level is low as well. So that's why. But it's like I said, everything that they were coming is like they were blaming us as parents. You know, then my son lost both his grandparents, his grandma, within a year. So I explained to the head teacher that, you know, he could be a bit traumatized. There's research that says this. So this head teacher was like, grieving. But the head teacher said, nonsense. You know, I've seen many of children that's lost grandparents, and they don't act out this way. The funny thing is, that word nonsense, me and my wife don't use. So I was always wondering where my son got that word nonsense from. Exactly, from the head teacher. So this is what was happening for the 6 months before I saw my son get pinned down. We asked for an education healthcare plan, because I'm like, look, he needs to have an EP, education psychiatrist. They wouldn't give us that. The only time they chose to give us that when I witnessed that, and I said to them, that's it, that's fine, I'm going to blow this up. Then they literally gave my son an education healthcare plan. The EP then did an assessment, and they said that my son, you know, he's got SEN, some type of autism. and this is why he's playing
So that
out.
explains pretty much everything. So for everything they were coming at you with, shouting, that was because of his hearing.
Yeah.
Always tired. Because believe me, I know what it's like to have your blood count low. I've had 2 transfusions in my life.
Yeah.
And I know leading up to that, no amount of sleep was enough. Listen, I could have gone to my bed at 10 o'clock in the morning and woke up at 8 o'clock the next morning. I would have still been tired.
Yeah.
And then so everything else and the behavioral issues was all because he has a form of autism. So what did the head teacher, what explanation, justification, what did he say as to his reason to validate holding down a 6-year-old child?
When we had the team around the child meeting and I brought it up in front of all the professionals, his validation was that Caleb, the 6-year-old, has got a very strong punch and it hurt him.
So what size is this head teacher then? Because 6-year-old, whatever, it's not a grown man.
Yeah. So now I say, because people might be wondering, well, what's this got to do with the question that you asked me? I just needed to put some comment. So while I was going through all of that, I was literally calling out to my Father Almighty saying, because that's it. When that happened, I managed to get my son out of that school into another school. I was literally on 2 phones with the school admissions and then a school that I'd got into. So I was holding 2 phones, trying to mediate between them. And then literally the school admissions said, yes, we can accept him at the school that he's at now.
Okay.
So I phoned up my wife. I said to my wife, babes, I sorted it. You know, they said that he can start school next week. So the following day, my wife called that school to following day or day after, I can't remember, 2 days after, to say, to make arrangements. They turned around and said, no, they can't do it. So because there's no paperwork that come through and everything. So my wife obviously phoned me up crying on the phone, and you want to then, like I said, I saw myself as a provider and a protector of my family now. So to hear my wife crying now, I was like, what? So I literally went to pick up my son from school, and I was literally listening, because I went through, that was the period that I went through depression, anxiety as well, and there was no Courtney Too Sweet. Then you'd see me, I was literally hadn't cut my hair. Yeah, I wasn't cutting my hair. I was crying, or I was depressed. Do you get what I'm saying? Wow. So I'm walking down the road with my son. I'm literally looking up in the air, Alison. I'm saying to God, why? Why would you do this to me? Why would you give us something and then take it away? Why would you help me find a school and then take it back away? Why? Yeah, and and this time I'm just crying, Alison, like, why? Because it's painful. This is my family. This is my son. This is my wife. This is my family. And I'm literally saying to you, I'm doing everything you asked me to do. I don't rave no more. I'm doing your Father2Father work. And you know what he said to me? He said, you haven't done everything I've asked you to do, Courtney. And I'm like, what? He said, no, this time I'm sitting in the park because my son wanted to go to the park. So I said, go on. I said, what are you talking about? He goes, you haven't confessed to your wife how you was as Courtney Too Sweet.
Ouch.
I was like, what? This time now, when that one hit me, I was rebuking it because I thought, no, sir, that's that devil there talking to me. No, sir, that ain't happening. Move, yeah. But you know what? When the Father Almighty comes back to you with another word, and what he showed me Abraham and his son Isaac. Yeah, where God said to Abraham, where God tested him to see how much you love me, how much do you trust me, how much are you going to be obedient to me? Go and kill your own son. Remember that one?
Yeah,
that one.
Absolutely.
And that's what God showed me. Yeah, he showed me that scripture that, yes, what he showed me is that if you love and obedient to me so much, are you willing to sacrifice your marriage and everything for me?
Yeah, because you confessing to your wife, that could have really have been her saying, you know what, deuces, I'm not going to put up with this.
Exactly. So what happened then, Alison? I literally said, you know what, Father? All right then, because you know what? All right, I'm gonna do this as long as you look after my wife and my boys in it. I will do that. Whatever happens to me, happens to me. But please just protect my children and my wife. I went home, and you know, obviously, I confessed to her, told her what I was up to, what I used to do as Courtney Too Sweet. And guess what happened, Alison? She obviously said that she needs to go. She needs time because it hit her. Yeah,
So
and
I'm going to ask you, if you don't mind,
go
you
ahead.
have to go into graphic detail. What were you doing as Courtney Too Sweet?
Oh, sorry. So as Courtney Too, I was having affairs. Yeah, I was sleeping out.
Affairs, you said.
I was sleeping out. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, I was sleeping out. Yeah, and I didn't understand. Well, kind of now, and this is no. I don't condone it. Yeah. Now that I've gone from my journey and going on my healing, I can see where all of this, as you said, product of your environment. Because I remember, no word of lie, seeing my dad having sex with another woman, knowing that he was with my mum.
You
At a
saw
young
that?
age. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. At a young age, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But anyway, so that's what I had to confess to her about. So what then happened, Alison, is then, like I said, she said she had to leave, she had to go, she needed some time out. So I understood that. But as she went through the door, the postman come and gave her a letter. She opened the letter, she read it, and then she handed it to me. It was a letter from the school's admissions for Enfield Council saying that my son had the place in the school that I'd rang up. Exactly. I signed that letter straight because, you know, in this country here, from you've got a letter and you sign that and you take it up and get it stamped, no one can argue it. I signed it, took it up to the place, got it stamped. So then when the head of education for the borough called me up, I told him straight, my son's going to that school. Because if I've got a signed document stamped to say he's been accepted, argue that because I will get solicitors on this year, you know? And I just believe, and we both believe, that was because I was obedient to God. Because I was obedient, he then provided the solution for my son. He took care of my son as he said.
As you had asked.
As I had asked.
As you had asked.
And then obviously me and my wife had to go through a healing process after that. And you know what? So Caleb, so 5 years later, we're stronger than we've ever been. Stronger.
I was going to ask you, how is Caleb doing and how old is he now?
Yeah, he's Caleb's 11 now and he's doing really well. He's able to express himself a lot better now. And he knows how, he's got strategies to manage his emotions in a positive way. Do you get what I'm saying? So so that was the journey from Courtney Too Sweet to Father2Father and the cleansing. Because the key thing there is, for me, is that I wasn't pushing Father2Father. And what God showed me is the reason why you're not pushing to Father2Father is because you're carrying the guilt. You're scared. You're scared that one of those girls is going to call you out as a fraud.
That's deep though, Courtney.
I saw a vision. I saw a dream that I was on a platform talking and I just saw 1, 2, 3 pointing at me.
A man's worst nightmare.
You know, so I had to, it was only right for me. If I was going to, thank you, God. If I was going to build something secure on God's integrity, I had to start cleansing.
And you had to be a man of integrity.
Exactly. So that meant I had to, you know, explain to my wife, and whatever happens, you know. But yeah, God is true to his word. You know, we're still together after 5 years and we're building something together.
Oh, that is wonderful. That is, ooh, that's a journey. That's a ride right there. Yeah. And what in talking to you about your journey and being a product of your environment, one of my all-time favorite quotes is a quote by Frederick Douglass. And you know, Frederick Douglass was around in the days of Harriet Tubman.
Yeah.
So, and the quote is, "It is easier to build strong children than repair broken men."
Yeah. And you know what? And I saw that quote literally I've seen it all the time, but about 6 months ago, I flipped it. I said, Father2Father will build strong children while healing
broken men. Ooh, I like that. And that's now recorded for posterity. Yeah. Because before I ever even saw this Frederick Douglass quote, because of my own experiences growing up, what I used to say back in the days when I was like cussing and swearing like a sailor, I would say, effed up children turn out into effed up adults. And that's how I would term it. And then as time got on, thank God for the internet, and I found this quote years ago, and I'm like, that's what I've been saying for years. Because in 1996, I started as a teen mentor. So I've been mentoring teens for like 24 years now.
Yeah, I remember us talking about that the other day. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So and because of my experiences all those years ago with those children, that's what, and because of my own experiences, that's what made me just think, you know what? People are a product of their environment, and an effed up child just turns into an effed up adult.
Yeah.
Coming across this quote from 18 whatever, it's just like, you see, there's nothing new under the sun.
There's nothing new, understand? And it is, and this is one of the things the work I do in Father2Father and the work I do in schools, you know, I come from a position of, you can see the behavior, but what's going on behind? What's the emotion that's driving that behavior? What is the journey? What's happened for that person to get there? And once I start looking at things like that, I don't see the behavior again. I see the potential in that person. How can we heal that? How can we, as my saying, how can we touch the heart to transform the life?
That's good, Courtney.
You get what I'm saying?
No, absolutely. Because as a coach, as a life coach, and as a coach, even though they say counselors and psychologists and psychotherapists, they're the ones that are supposed to make people go back to their past. But my thing is, as a coach, it makes zero sense and 0 point trying to plan a path forward if you haven't dealt with the things that have been holding people all these years. So my thing is, so my coaching is coaching with a difference. So and the way that I describe it is, if you look at an athlete, somebody like a pole vaulter, long jump, high jump, before they start running forwards to take that leap, they take a step back. And that's what I do in my coaching. I says, okay, let me take a step back to look at what has been going on, what has been happening. Let's work on fixing that. Then you can move forward. Because if we don't work on that, those things will still be holding people back. And it's like, you know, when you see people training and they're running forward and they've got like the parachute and the weight behind them. So my thing is, let's cut those weights and that parachute so that there's nothing holding you back, so you can do that to move forward. So I'm totally with you on examining that behavior, because my thing, and one of the things I remember back when it was all over the news about Rihanna and Chris Brown, and everybody was going off. But the first thing that came into my mind was, of course, I felt bad for Rihanna. But then I also stopped to think, it's like, Chris Brown, at the time, I think he was 21. What has happened to you what have you seen in your life that by the age of 21, you're already being violently abusive to women? That's what was going on for me. Whereas, like I said, all the sympathy for Rihanna, because nobody should be abused. Nobody.
That's right. Yeah.
I then had to look at what drove that, especially in one so young. And that's where that Frederick Douglass quote comes in. It's
Mm-hmm.
easier to build strong children than repair broken men.
And that is the thing, because that's what we've got a product called Men Chat 2, but the chat is an acronym. So the C is for men need to connect to.
Mm-hmm.
The H is men need healing to. The A is men need acknowledgement to. And when we talk about acknowledge, they have emotions. They have anger, annoyance, frustration. Yeah,
They have fears and doubts.
They have fears and doubts as well too. So let's acknowledge it. Yeah, and let's acknowledge that, and the T's men need to talk to. And in that, the amount of men that we've been talking with that are carrying some deep secrets, and I use the terminology about a shadow, like when you're walking, when the sun's beating down, you walk and the shadow just behind you and you're trying to run from that shadow, but that shadow is just there. Yeah. There's some men that are carrying that shadow, but through Men Chat 2, we're getting these men through their own journey and their own acknowledgement, turning and facing that shadow. And as you know, have you noticed when sometimes you face the shadow starts getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Yeah, and that's what we're dealing with. That's where the repairing broken men comes from. And because once they go through that cleansing and recognize that there's no judgment here, and that's the thing I'm always saying to them within Father, there's no judgment here.
That is so key.
Who am I to judge? I've just told you about my dirty laundry.
Right? It's all out there. It's hanging up.
It's all out there. It's out there. So feel free. Everyone can see it. So nobody, it's not for anybody to judge.
It's not, but you know what I think some of these secrets are as well, though, that I've learned a lot of recently, thanks to you introducing me to Kaz.
Yeah.
In his project, The Stories That Boys Don't Tell.
That's right.
I was talking to him and he was telling me about the amount of boys, Black boys, that have been sexually abused and molested by friends of the family members and so on. And they internalize all of that because in the Black community, in the African and West Indian cultures, that is just something that is a straight no, you do not talk about that. So then these men have grown up with these issues, and some of them possibly are like identity crisis issues as well.
Definitely.
And so when you're saying about some of them have got some real deep rooted secrets, and it's like prime example, Courtney Too Sweet, the Gallus, the man about town, the man on a road. If Courtney Too Sweet was ever molested as a child, what, Courtney Too Sweet really going to tell somebody that?
I confessed that many years ago.
But no. Courtney Too Sweet.
Oh yeah, Courtney Too Sweet. Yeah. I get
not Courtney Brown.
Young Courtney Brown.
Courtney Too Sweet.
Yeah.
And the thing is, a lot of men have that alter ego. They have that, and it's not even so much the ego. I think for some of them, in order to cope, they've had to have that alter ego. That happened to that person. This is me now. This is who I am. That wasn't me. So they've kind of separated themselves from it without dealing with it.
You've hit the nail right on the head, because Courtney Too Sweet was the alter ego. And I didn't have to deal with it, so I could separate it. So when I was out as Courtney Too Sweet, it wasn't what I realize now, but I didn't know that it was an act. I was the best actor going on.
I'm just drinking my tea.
But when Courtney was at home, and all those thoughts and whatever insecurities are going on, man, it's real. Like, listen, it's a real thing. That's out there, the alter ego.
And I don't think people realize it, especially because, especially for men, and this is irrespective of color, because men hear boys don't cry, man up, pussy whip, henpecked. You hear all of those types of things. So in order for men to kind of prove themselves to be the man, they can't then reveal to say, you know something, as a boy, I was sexually abused. As a boy, I was raped. As a boy, I was beaten and starved. Or as a boy, this is my story. This is my journey.
Yeah, that's why I really love Cass, because the courage for him to come out and talk about his journey. Yeah, I know, because that's what I said to people about Father2Father. It's not just about my journey. If you could bring my journey and somebody else's journey and somebody else's journey and somebody else's journey, different journeys. Do you know how much people that we could really help out there just by being transparent? So Father isn't, yes, God's ordained me to be the steward over it because it's his. But I'm a person that wants to collaborate with other men and fathers to share their story, but then know that we are your brother's keeper. We're not here to judge you. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, because it's like that quote. There's a quote that says, if you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go far, you'll go together.
Together, exactly.
And that's what you're doing by bringing all those other men in, giving them that safe space to be able to just offload and share. And some of them probably to reveal and talk about things they probably never even told anybody.
Yeah,
to really start that healing and the healing process, so that you are repairing these broken men, so that the cycle doesn't continue into the next generation.
That's it. And we have to, because that's the thing, you know, because obviously I've spoken about my dad, and I've given one side of my dad, but I've had to understand his journey, because I didn't know his journey. So it was literally like the Father Almighty said, well, you asked your sons to forgive you. They've forgiven you. You've forgiven yourself. When are you going to forgive your dad?
Oh, ow. Let me get some more tea.
Yeah. When are you going to forgive your own dad? And then I started investigating, checking out his journey and his upbringing, coming from Jamaica to England. So let's start in Jamaica. When I asked my uncle about how my dad was brought up in Jamaica, first thing, my granddad had to leave my dad in Jamaica to go and find a better life. Ooh. So hold on, I recognize that. So I know granddad went to America to provide a better, but for a son that's still missing somebody. That's the first thing. The next thing that happened was that we had an uncle, or they had an uncle in Jamaica, that was the disciplinary. But when my uncle described this great uncle of mine, my uncle said him tick. Yeah. So when they would call this gentleman for my dad, the beating my dad got, everybody in the house cried. You hear what I'm saying? The beating he would get, everybody in the house cried. So then my uncle was explaining to me, let alone now, if your dad escaped that beating and get down to the gully, everybody in the house would have to leave the house. And I said, why, uncle? He said, your dad will start launching some big boulders from the gully at the house. And if any of those boulders lick you, you're gone. So everybody said, what, Potty, get away? All right, let's leave the house. Because they know what's the next thing's going to come. He was going to start launching boulders because he was so angry. And he would used to say is, you lot, what my uncle said he would say. No, my dad said it to me, actually. He would say, yo, you lot can only do this to me now because my dad is not here.
Wow.
So that's Jamaica. Now he's come to England. Yeah? Where now he's facing racism. Blatantly. Mods, NF, blatantly. Wants to provide for his family, but has no blacks, no Irish, can't get it. So when I did speak to my dad, I said, Dad, how did you survive? My dad just went like that, just put up to like the gun salute. He had to learn, that's where he had to learn his trade.
On the street.
On the street. But with all the trauma he's already had from childhood.
Mm. But that's why he was so notorious out on road, because he had to, by way of survival, become that person. So it actually wasn't a deliberate choice he made to be that man. No. It was, what's that song? Circumstances made me who I am.
Yeah. And once I started, now don't get me wrong, because I need to say this for the listeners. I do not condone domestic abuse or anything like that. However, I started to understand my dad's story a little bit more. And then obviously he's got mental health. So my dad's been diagnosed schizophrenia. So again, back then, rather than talking therapy or anything like that, what they did is then just lock my dad up in Claybury Hospital, which is a mental clinic, and inject him. So at the age of 14, that's why I was angry with him even more in teenager age, because now, look, because remember, I'm young, I didn't get it then. I'm coming to see you, you're all drugged up, but there's me in Tottenham hearing people talk about behind closed doors, oh, him and his mad pupper. So as a lot was going on, but a lot was going on for my dad as well.
Right.
And that's what, and so my thing was, how can I hold a man accountable for something he didn't even know himself? And from I got to that place there, that's where I had to just say, you know what, Dad, I forgive you. You know, wow. And as you know, I look after my dad now. I'm my dad's carer now, as you know.
Yeah, and I do fully identify with that, Courtney, because my own journey was, I didn't know that my mum got pregnant with me as a result of a rape. So I didn't know this till I was in my late 20s. So I never understood the relationship between me and my mum. And like yourself, it was just doing things, wanting her approval. But then she wasn't living in the house with us. I was kind of left, because you know what it's like, a family that we've known from Jamaica, that our grandparents knew each other. I was kind of left in that house, raised with those. So when people hear me say I'm an only child, but yet say I have brothers and sisters, that's why. Because I was with them from the age of 3. Yeah. And right up until I was in my late teens. And so we grew up in the same house as siblings, because there was two, the youngest 2 were twins, and they're only 2 months and 1 week older than me. So we were called the triplets. We were dressed alike, same thing in different colors. So I never understood why my mum wasn't there. I never understood why my mum and I had the relationship we had, or the non-existent relationship, I should say. I didn't know why my mum was angry towards me. And I didn't know why my mum had I don't want to use the word despise, but there was something there, not realizing there's many features of my father I have. Because even though my mum was raped, it was by somebody known to the family. Yeah. So I was this constant reminder of this thing that happened to her. And at the time, my mum was 19 when it happened. She was like 19 and 6 months when this had happened to her. So, and she'd only been in the country for 5 years, because she left Jamaica at 14. So she'd only been in England 5 years when this had happened to her. Okay, wow. So it's not until later in life that I learned my mum's story and her journey, and then I had to go to her and say, by the way, because it wasn't my mum that told me, by the way. Yeah. It was one of them. She has this real bad mind sister. She decided to take it upon herself to tell me. But then I had to, and this time my mum was already living over here in the States and I was still in London. So I had to call my mum up and says, I was just told, and I had to tell her everything I was just told. Yeah. And she's like, yes, it's true. But before I called her, I called my uncle. Now, my uncle, notorious roadman from Brixton. Yeah. And his exact words to me were, I knew this day was coming and I knew you would come to me. Because the reason my mum had gone to the house was because he had not long come from Jamaica and he was misbehaving. So he was staying with his auntie, and the auntie called my mum to come and talk to him. But he was staying truant from school and hiding in the house, but nobody knew. So when everything kicked off and transpired, he was there in the house.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's why he said, I knew this day would come, and I knew you would come to me.
To me, yeah.
Because hearing that, he's the reason my mum had to go. Because at the time, my mum lived in northwest London, and this aunt lived in southeast London.
Yeah, yeah.
So there was a time of me and my mum we spoke and we worked. It took us years. I'm not going to say it happened overnight.
No, not at all.
It got to the place where, like, I then had to forgive my mum for, first of all, I had to forgive myself for how I was in my mind towards my mother. But then I had to forgive my mum. I remember I said to her, why didn't you tell me?
Yeah.
Why didn't you tell me? Why did it have to come from her? Because let me tell you something. When she was telling me, I wanted to punch every her head.
Yeah,
Believe me. It's one of those things where, listen, I can't even begin to tell you what I wanted to do to her. But I was angry, and I must admit I went off the rails for a while. But even coming up to that point, I had gone off the rails long time, long time. And so it was a period of healing for both my mother and myself, because it was no longer this secret that needed to be kept. And then I had to go through a process of healing, because I found out everybody in the family knew.
Yeah.
And one thing I say, it's one thing to know that every family has a family secret. It's another thing when you find out you are the family secret.
Wow. Powerful. Yeah.
And I found that out. That was me. And so again, I went a bit further off the rails before I came back.
No, I totally,
And so I understand when you say about forgiving your father and coming to that realization that the behavior he exhibited was driven by his own environment that he came up in. So believe me, I fully understand that. And you'd be surprised that it's not just men that go through that, because here I am, a woman, gone through that with my mother. So as people, we go through so many things that actually causes a lot of dysfunction in our life.
It does. And then, you can understand a little bit, because then obviously when I was going through all of that, I then kind of linked it up with the research and I don't like talking about violence, but I could see why there was a lot of violence going on in one of the reasons, because obviously there's many reasons, many root causes to violence, but this was one of the reasons, that something to do with the relationships and parents and the abandonment and that anger can drive
lashing out, isn't it though?
Yes, lashing out, you know, and so so that's why we do the work we do, in terms of father and provide those positive male models, but also, speak to dads in a non-judgment way, that be there for your child, and also not only speak to dads, but also send out messages to some mums, because it's not all mums, some mums, about, look, understand he may have hurted you, done this, done that, but you know what? He is there's no child protection or safeguarding issues.
Yeah, of course.
He's the father of that child, and they want to see their dad. They want. I speak to a lot of young people in the schools that, boy, you know what, Mr. Brown, I want to see my dad, but mum's not having it, and then for that,
mom.
Yeah, and then the young person feels a bit guilty, because then, well, what have they done for you? Look what I've done for you, and then they just keep quiet.
Yeah,
but
and they're hurting
inside.
And I think, but you see, the thing is, for me, and I actually spoke to a woman that actually works with families that are going through separation and divorce to come to the best resolution for the children. And I think, to be honest, I think people need to realize that when they're going through separations, there's a certain element of it that's not about them. It's
Thank you.
about
Exactly.
the child,
Child.
about what
Exactly.
is in the best interest for the child. Do you really
Exactly.
it is in your child's best interest that they don't see their father? Because
Mm,
why? Just because, and I'm not trying to diminish it, because he
mm,
doesn't want to be with you, because
mm,
you and he couldn't get on, that
mm,
shouldn't stop him from being the best possible father he can be. And
yeah,
I know there's some great dads. I remember
mm,
there's this guy that I dated more than 20 years ago now. Wow,
mm,
gosh, I'm dating myself. More than 20 years ago, and he separated from
mm,
the mother of his child,
mm,
and she was not allowing him to see his
mm,
child at all, at all, at all. And then there was one day I was like, okay, so what we doing this weekend? He's like,
mm,
I got my daughter. I'm like, wait, what?
mm,
Huh? And he's like, yeah, I was about to call you to tell you that I've got my daughter this weekend. So I'm over the moon. Like, okay,
mm,
okay, tell me what happened,
mm,
what happened? The mother called him and
mm.
said, it's not because I want you to see her. It's because I'm tired of her crying herself to sleep at nights, crying for her dad.
Mm,
And
mm.
I'm thinking, it needed to get there.
That far, yeah, yeah, yeah.
It need, and then he and I, we split up and we kind of lost touch for many years. And then, as you know,
Mm,
Ruddy, my dear, dear friend that passed
mm,
away recently, I would work on some of the events with him.
mm, mm-hmm,
And so I was at this wedding doing the coordinating for this wedding, and there he was. I was
mm,
like, oh my gosh, so good to see you.
mm,
And he says, yeah, I want you to see somebody. And he pointed out his daughter.
mm-hmm,
So, but I'm thinking that was his date. And I was just
mm.
like, this boy crazy. Why I need to see your date?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah,
hello. Not that there was anything in it for me
yeah,
and him by that point. I was just like, that's a bit weird, but okay.
mm,
It was his daughter.
yeah, powerful,
Grown,
powerful.
beautiful woman. They've got that bond that to the point where she was his plus one at a
Mm,
wedding.
awesome, awesome.
Yeah, so believe me, so I have seen it, and I don't get it. I just
Mm,
don't understand it. I don't understand it. And it's because people need to put their egos out of the way, because really, once the two of you have had a child together, there's a lot that's no longer about you.
mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, totally.
Yeah. So tell me,
Mm-hmm.
the work that you're doing in schools, because you mentioned, so are you still involved in the schools? Because you mentioned it
Yeah,
earlier.
yeah. So, well, that's my day job, the schools. As head of student engagement. But what's been happening, especially a lot since the well, no, let me be honest. Yeah, in Hackney had already signed up to a 15-year strategy around improving the outcomes of young black men.
Okay.
In a number of institutions, but because I work in education, I could talk about education. So they
Mhm.
were looking on, the fixed term exclusions of young black boys, and not a lot of head teachers are black, so there's no cultural competence and so forth. So
Mhm.
I've been doing that in Hackney in schools for the last 3 years. And funny enough, that's on the back of me going to this is why God is good, because I'm not a head teacher, but the school I was in before, the head teacher asked me to go to a head teachers conference that was all around this. And I
Mhm.
remember going to this head teachers conference, and there was a lady called Dr. Oh God, I forgot her surname. I think it's Dr. Lorraine. Yeah, and she was talking about four different elements.
Mhm.
So it was cultural competence,
Mhm.
racial identity and trauma, post-traumatic slave syndrome, and unconscious bias. And I'm sitting down listening to this lady,
Mhm.
Dr. Fontaine, that's it. Yeah, talking about this. And I'm like sitting down here, Alison, and I'm like, this woman is a fly on the wall. I've just gone through all. I'm like, that's what I've just gone through with the head teacher literally 8 months ago with my son.
Mm.
So I literally, when you're in those conferences, yeah, where they say, look, share your experiences, Alison. I got up and I just heard the Father Almighty say, don't talk as a professional, talk as a black father and what you witness a head teacher done.
With
Remember,
your
he
child.
exactly in front of a whole, at least 150 other head teachers, majority white. You see, when I finished, a pin could have dropped in that room. The gentleman that set up that conference called my head teacher and said, yo, you see Mr. Brown, he has to be part of the steering group. He just done the place. And so that's how I got on the head teacher steering group, and obviously go around and train, talk about cultural competency, unconscious, post-traumatic slave syndrome and everything. So that's school. In terms of Father2Father.
What programs do you run there with?
With our father. So we've got Boy Genius, because we believe every boy has a genius inside them. They just have to be motivated, inspired, nurtured, and encouraged.
That's amazing.
That is, we bring out the genius in them, you know. So it's not about behavior, it's about identity. And so this is for Black African Caribbean boys. So it's about identity, being proud of who you are, and be able to speak with authority of who you are as well, on who you are. And it's about self-regulation as well, which self-regulation talks about, you know, you're going to get triggered. You're going to get triggered. How are you going to manage it though? And the managing is not about internalizing it. So then mental well-being kicks in. Yeah, mental health, depression, all that. And it's not about externalizing. It's not about lashing out even. We have to find a strategy that works positively for you. So off the back of Boy Genius, we're starting up Girl Genius, which will be the same thing. We've also got, like I mentioned earlier on, Men Chat 2. So that's really expanding, because like I said, I'm getting a lot of men ringing in on via Zoom for that. And we've got another program called Informed Parents, which comes from obviously the scripture, my people perish for the lack of knowledge. So informed parents is literally giving parents information around education, around whatever they need. We provide them with that knowledge, but then we become advocates for them to also navigate that system there that they need. So that's informed parents. And we've got another product called Super Dads, which is a personal development brand. So it's again because when you're by yourself, you're by yourself. But when you become a dad, it's not about you. It's about you and your family. So how do you, you know, it's about providing, it's about protection. How do you become that super dad?
Whether you're in the home or not.
Or not in the home, exactly. But it's also recognizing your kryptonite as well. So actually, you know, because for some men, work is their coping strategy, but it's also their kryptonite if they're not aware of it. So why do you work so hard? I'll give you a story. I spoke to a father, 51-year-old father. He's got his daughter. She's 21. He phoned me up and he's like crying on the phone. I was like, what's wrong? He said, you know what? I've just found out that my daughter spoke to her stepmom saying, when dad passes away and he leaves me everything, I'm going to just squander it. Now, some people will say, ungrateful little girl. But when you hear, but why? Because you know what her story is? I never asked for all of this. I just wanted your time. But you was out working. So she's actually resented everything now.
My gosh. And I've heard a similar where he had his daytime, but he was doing something else on the side, which involved music. And he said, and this was the young lady telling me this. This wasn't even the father telling me this. And she was saying that she had spoken to her father about the issue. And her dad says, it's all for you and the other children. So when I'm gone, it's all yours. And she said to me, Alison, but I don't want it. I just want my dad. Exactly. Those were her exact words. Alison, I don't want it. I just want my dad. And I think people really underestimate the value of time spent.
That's right.
Because yes, you want to provide. Yes, you want to be the best provider. Yes, it's some of the things that drive men to be the breadwinner and so on and so forth. But there needs to be that balance. Because and I remember an experience with that I saw with, it was a case of the way that the person was behaving. And I was asking him, because it was somebody I was involved in, and I was asking him, and it got to because of how he saw his dad. It made me think. It made me think, though. I thought to myself, I don't know my father, never met him, ever. So, and I asked myself the question, which is worse? To never know your father, or to have a father but him not being present? And I came to the realization, the worst one is having a father, knowing your father, being able to reach out and touch your father, but he's not present because he's either working all the time, he's not in the home and stuff like that. That's actually worse, because the truth is I can't miss what I've never had.
That's right. Yeah. It's funny
I can want it. I see other people and I'm like, oh, can you be my dad? The amount of people I said, do you want to adopt me? But with those, knowing that who your father is, this physical man right there, he doesn't know you and you don't know him.
Yeah. It's funny because that's what I got. I wear my Father2Father t-shirt, and on the back of it, it's got, I am present, involved, and responsible.
Okay, I didn't know that.
I know you didn't. So you saying that, it's the first thing in my Father2Father t-shirt. At the back, it's got, I am present, involved, and responsible.
My gosh. So it just goes to show then, Courtney, it just goes to show that really is, as a child, that's all they want. They want that time when they play with their dad, and that time when they're sitting down, maybe chilling and just watching, even if it's something ridiculous, or because I'm like my partner, he sits down and he watches these shows with his son on YouTube. And I'm just like, okay, this is stupid. This is like, I don't even understand what they're saying. But you know what? That's their time. They're sharing, they're bonding, and then they're having conversations and like, come and watch this. So it's like, no. I'd rather be in the kitchen cooking. No, I'm good. But I do join.
Yeah.
And I make the face like, oh, this is good. And then Alison, repent, Alison, because you're lying, because it really isn't.
Would you believe, Alison, my 11-year-old, sorry, Caleb, yeah. Would you believe he loves watching Columbo with me on Sundays?
Because that's your time.
He would be like, Columbo, even like you said, my wife would look like, how are you not watching Columbo? Like, haven't you seen that already? You know who the killer is, you know who the murderer is. Me and Caleb just looks at her like, whatever, and we just watch Columbo. And he would cozy right up to me. That security that dad's got me. Do you get what I'm saying? So time is very that's why I say to everybody, young children, spell love, Time. Young children, how they spell love is Time.
That's deep. That's like levels of deep. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. So what's next for Courtney and Father2Father?
Well, for Courtney, just continue being the God-driven, the Son of God. Keep focusing on, keep learning, keep listening to him. Be the best husband I can be to an awesome woman, my wife, and being the best father I can be, and a grandfather. That's where my mindset is at the moment. Just the thing is, I keep saying to everybody, when it's funny because when you've been given a mission, for me, like Father2Father, I have to live it. So when people are like, can you come to this meeting? No, because this is my time with my family.
You're living your belief.
I'm living my belief. I have to. It's called accountability. You said it's integrity. How can I be out there saving the world when my home?
Listen,
My
you know, it's
home.
funny because somebody recently that kind of means a lot to me. Recently, they've been putting up all these posts on social media about doing random acts of kindness and doing this and doing this. And it's like, go and be the best person and make a vow and do something for somebody that will benefit somebody else. And then I'm looking at just like, you know, the expression you make, dance a yard before you dance abroad, or to translate, dance at home, manage in home first before you go out there trying to be this person for everybody else. And I remember like after my ex-husband and I split up, and before we blocked each other from social media, and because he'd already started a relationship before we'd even split up. And then when I would see the things he put on social media with him and this relationship, talking about, I choose to be faithful to one woman, and fellas, listen to your woman. And I'm thinking, I can't take you seriously because you're putting all these things up, A, before we're even divorced, and B, you started seeing her while you were married. It was just like, shut up.
You have to be
authentic. Up. Yeah. And I just looked at it and I just thought, you know what? I have to block this joker because these things are just going to raise my blood pressure and get me mad. So, but it's true. And because the thing is, if it was one of those things where, and it wasn't an acrimonious divorce or anything like that, but if it was one of those things where, because he even said towards the end, I said to him, did you try to make this work? At first, he's like, yeah. And then he came to me and says, you know what, Alison, to be honest, I didn't try. I'm like, yeah, I know. That's why I asked you the question in the first place. But okay. I wasn't just asking you for asking you's sake. And then, so the fact that you will be there, be married, and not try to make your marriage work. You're now dating this person, and all over social media, it's all love and roses and rainbows and whatever. And to be honest with you, if things within our marriage had been different, but yet we still ended up in divorce, I'd be able to say to her, you know what? You got a good one there. It just wasn't meant to be for he and I. Because I would give credit where credit's just like, you know what? Yep, you got a good one. Yeah, good for you. But when I saw all of that, I just thought, yeah, but no, I'm good. Miss me on that. So to your point, you know, dance a yard before you dance abroad. Dance at home first. Take care of home first. Because the last thing you want is for your children to look at all the work you're doing. Forget all the people out there, really, because your priority is home.
It's home, exactly.
So let's forget all the people out there. So the last thing you want is for your children to resent you and think, oh, you're giving time to all these people, though. You got time for this one, though. You got time to help that one, though. Where's my time? When are you going to do that for me?
Yeah. And it's funny you say that because about 2-3 years ago, that's what the oldest two said to me.
Oh, okay. See, I didn't know that part either.
Yeah, because what happened was the fact that they started resenting Father2Father. And what they explained to me is that they've not grown up seeing that. Caleb and Joshua has grown up seeing that. They've not grown up seeing that. All they want is dad.
That you're giving to everybody else.
Exactly. So in my mind, because this is what the thing is. So when they was talking to me, because in my mind I'm like, and this is another thing. It don't matter how old they are, they still want that quality time with your dad, because that's what they were talking about. They just wanted. Let me tell you how it is. So one of my sons, he's gone into the raving thing, innit? So he's become this big promoter now. Yeah, bashment thing. Got the brand. He's got the brand, innit? He's got. Everyone can see. Everyone said, Courtney, the apple hasn't fallen from the tree. Yeah, so he's there. But I would never go to any of his raves. Why? Why didn't I go? Because I was like, no, because I recognized that was my coping strategy. So I tried to stay away. And I was on this pedestal, innit? Like, no, I need to show my sons this is what it's all about. But what I should have actually done is go, yes.
Go to his dance.
Go to his dance and
son.
support. Exactly. But I got it. So when he had his next one, I went there and no word of lie. He won't admit it, but I could see him like looking over his shoulder. Like I said, son, I can see you, son. I can see you on the stage, son.
So he probably push out his chest a little bit more, right?
I can see you, son. And then it was the same thing with the second son. He was like, Dad, I just want us to go to, I know you don't, I just want us to go to a wine bar or so, but because I wasn't doing them things to go, another thing is they're big men, so I didn't think they wanted me around. Actually, no, we do want you around. But one thing they did admit though is that actually, why didn't we come and talk to you about that?
Yeah.
Because one thing they did say is that one thing you have done, Dad, is kept the door open to know that we could always come and talk to you.
And that is key.
So they owned that themselves, you know. So actually, why didn't we just go and talk to Dad? Yeah. And so, but once we communicated and everything, it was fine. It was so fine. So within 3 weeks, we was going bowling, eating, and they loved it. So we make sure we have that time with each other. And the other thing is, one of my sons said is that, Dad, because he's got his girlfriend and everything, and he said him and his girlfriend sat down the other day, and he said, if it wasn't for you and Lois and how we see how you two communicate and work towards things, wow, never see. That's how their relationship is.
Wow.
Seeing how you and Lois sit down, and you may not agree on everything, but you communicate that. You work through it. You don't hold malice to the next day. You keep it moving.
You agree to disagree and
and move it on. And he said that is something. Yeah. So they are watching us.
Of course.
They are watching us.
The way to know that children are watching, watch a toddler. Watch a toddler. There's certain things, and it could be something as simple as going to pick up the broom, but watch a toddler, watch how they do things. Because there was that, you know what it was? I don't know, did you ever see that video where it's now like it's like very popular, where people are like, listen, Linda, listen, Linda.
No.
Right. So that basically there was this little boy.
Yeah.
And he went to get a cupcake, but he was told he couldn't have the cupcake. But he decided he's going to go get the cupcake, and he got caught. And his mother's talking to him, and you know, I think he probably was about 3 years old, and the mother's talking to him and goes, but did you go and get the cupcake? And he's like, yeah, and trying to explain himself and talking. And then in one point it goes, but listen, Linda, listen, honey, listen, Linda, listen, Linda.
Wow.
So you go like, oh, is that how his father talks to his mother?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? He was about 3 years old. I'm going to see if I can find a clip and send it to you. This was a good few years old. Now, I thought this a good few years ago, but over here in the US, it's a bit of a running joke when you're talking to somebody and they're like, listen, Linda, listen, Linda, because it's from that, a 3-year-old. If you want to know if they're watching and paying attention, look at a very young one. And I think that's where people should pay attention. Look at the young ones. Look at what they're doing, especially when you see these videos of these little ones shaking what their mama gave them. It's just like, where do we get that from? And that's what, because they are watching. So Courtney, where can parents find you? Especially if they're going through stuff and they're like, you know what, you're right. My children are watching. I need to change. I need to do things better. Where can people find you?
Well, we've got our website, which is www.father2father.co.uk. The email address is info@father2father.co.uk. We're on Instagram, Father2Father on Instagram. So those are the social media outlets. I'm just trying to think if there's any other. So it's Instagram, website. I think those are two. Or obviously we're on Facebook as well. Father2Father. That's how they can find us on there.
Okay, and everywhere it's always the number 2. Father.
Everywhere, the number 2, Father. Yeah, everywhere. Okay. Father2Father. And, you know, in terms of where, for me, it's all about capacity building now, because the brand is strong. So, you know, we've got over here in England, London, we've got a number of local authorities. I'm in discussion with a number of local authorities out here about Father2Father. So I need to build the capacity to be able to, for the model to be spread with the Father2Father blueprint. And as you know, both of us are part of Amazing Black Socks. So we're going global as well. So Africa, and potentially the Caribbean as well, doing work out there. So that's where it is, you know.
Because it's needed. What you're doing is needed. And to be honest, I would say it's not just Black men that need it.
No, it's not.
There's
just
men
Black
across all ethnicities that are struggling with stuff. And I can just only quantify it as stuff. So it is much needed. Courtney,
Alison,
thank you. This has been great. I've enjoyed talking to you. I've enjoyed learning more about the work that you're doing. And I love that Men Chat too. Absolutely love it. So where can people find that Men Chat too? Is that on your website?
It'll be, we've taken it down at the moment because we've just finished a cycle. So, you know, like with anything, you take it down, you complete the cycle, you have to do your evaluation, tweak it and everything. But I reckon it will be up by the end of, what's today, Saturday? By the end of next Friday, it will be back up on the website, new and improved.
Excellent.
One of it. But yeah, that's definitely needed.
Yes, it is. And I'm so grateful that there are people like yourself willing to put yourselves completely out there, lay yourself naked and bare.
Yep, have to.
To be able to help build broken men. So Courtney, Father2Father.
Thank you, Alison.
Thank you, because I know you've had a hectic day, so I'm going to let you go.
Thank you.
Thank you, and we will definitely be speaking soon.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
We've got projects to work on.
Take care, yeah?
Okay, my brother.
Have a blessed weekend. Take care. Bye-bye.
Up to the children and Lois.
I will do.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.